Hi, and welcome to episode 132 of the Heartland Knits podcast. My name is Vicki, but you can find me as Heartland Knits on places like Ravelry and Instagram. And today is Sunday, January 10th, 2016. First off, I wanted to thank you all for joining me, especially those of you who watched last week's show and came back after the I'm not knitting socks in 2016 announcement. Thank you. um, Today's show, I have a new project to show you, and a finished project to show you, and a little bit of a sort of update on a couple projects from last year. That'll be at the end. So let's start out with what's on my needles. And so first I'm going to show you kind of one of the projects I talked about last week that was going to be, I told you it was going to become my sort of focused knitting the next little bit. I have it in this basket, and it's, as you can see, it's got a lot of colors in it. This is a Fair Isle that has 17 colors in it, and I learned to kind of arrange them and keep them in a basket like this from a friend of mine who does a lot of Fair Isle and stranded knitting. It's a shallow basket, so this is all Jameson Spindrift yarn. So it's about the right height as all the skeins, and then as you change colors, you can just pull the yarns out of there, so you don't have to be like rumbling around in a bag or anything. They're just all there, sort of waiting for you and ready to go. But this is for my Rona, which is an Alice Starmore design, and so I did some work on her. Oh, there the colors are coming up. Good. This is going to be a Fair Isle cardigan. I'm not in the start of a round, but so I did some work on her. I finished up the first sleeve, so the first sleeve is finished, and then I spent a little time sort of doing calculating, and last summer when I was knitting on the sleeve, I just kind of was, increasing at the rate I wanted to do, but I wasn't really sure kind of the length I wanted it or the width I wanted it. And so I sat down and did all the calculating. So I had ended off the body kind of at this kind of band when I stopped it. And I knit most of this in that fall of 2011. And I just kind of came, kind of held it up and thought, it's going to be close to the length that I want it. I didn't want to overshoot it because it's a lot of knitting. So I ended up deciding that I wanted to put a little bit more length on it. I wanted to make it a little bit longer. So I did these two bands this week. It's so much more fun to knit on the body of the sweater than the sleeve of the sweater, because I am doing in both of these. So I'll open this up. This is my beginning of the round. I am spit splicing all the colors as I'm changing them. And there's only maybe 2 or 3 rounds of this that there's not one color changing. So it's a lot of kind of knit a little bit, stop, knit a little bit, stop, spit splice. So when you're doing the whole body, you get into a really nice rhythm, and it's really relaxing and pleasurable to knit, much more so than the little rounds on the sleeve. So here is where my steek is going to be. This is going to be a cardigan, so I'm doing a steek. You can see the difference in the pattern there. And I am doing this, the construction on this, a little bit different. And I think that's what's sort of been kind of stopping me going, because if you're kind of aware of how the Starmore sweaters were knit, at least back in the 90s. This is from like somewhere in the 90s. The book that this is from is called In the Hebrides. But back then, it was sort of the style more too. Then everything was kind of bigger and boxier, but this was just a plain drop shoulder. You knit kind of a great big tube, and then you did armhole steeks, picked up stitches along the armholes, and then knit the sleeves down. So obviously, I'm not doing that with this one because I'm doing the sleeves, have the first sleeve finished. And so the thing about those big drop-shouldered kind of cardigans is you get a lot of excess bulk underneath the arms. And there's ways you can do sort of a modified drop and kind of inset that sleeve kind of into the body. You still get a little bit. And when I started out doing this, I thought, I want to do something different. So I remembered in this book, which is the Knitting Workshop from Elizabeth Zimmerman, she's got all different sort of methods of construction, like of doing kind of the yokes of if you do a yoke sweater, this is kind of how I'm doing it. I'm knitting, bottom up the body, the sleeves, and then going to join it all together. Like you would if you're going to do like a color work yoke, or, you can do a raglan that way and stuff. So, but she has in here a set-in sleeve yoke, which I'll just show you that little picture there. So that's what I decided. I had decided I wanted to do, and I kind of thought about, do I just want to keep on with this? I've run this idea across, a couple friends from knitting camp that have knit like tons of Starmores. One, my one friend who knits like 3 Starmores for every knitting camp every summer. And, they said, yeah, that should work. So, like, I'm hoping it will. So the premise is, so what you do is you connect everything together, and you start out decreasing, keeping the sleeve stitches, the same, but decreasing the body stitches until you get to kind of the width of the shoulders that you want. And then you end up kind of keeping the body stitches and, like switching. And when you're decreasing, you're eating away, or, eating up the sleeve stitches. And there's different kind of rates. She says in here, like different, rates of decreasing, because you don't, when you do a usual set-in sleeve, you knit, you kind of decrease here, and then you go straight for a little bit, and then you kind of decrease for the sleeve cap. So that's what I'm aiming for, and I think that's what's kind of been, stopping me when I started this and had this brilliant idea, but kind of did the whole body. That was the fall, like right after I had finished chemo, and your brain just gets a little fuzzy, and so I'm sure I thought I knew that I couldn't kind of figure it out. I wasn't gonna like run the chance of like figuring it out wrong. Anyway, so that was kind of a big like hurdle that I kind of got over. So the new project I cast on, I'm keeping in this basket. And if you remember, last summer when I went to knitting camp, I bought these 2 skeins of yarn. And these are Ultra Alpaca from Barocco. I love Ultra Alpaca. Actually, this green, when I was winding it, I thought, I need to knit an entire sweater out of this yarn. I have a lighter green Ultra Alpaca sweater. And that's kind of the same thing that happened with that one, is I was winding it thinking, oh, I need to knit a sweater out of that. So I definitely think I want to knit a sweater out of that color once I get to it, this project finished. But I bought that yarn specifically to knit a pair of mittens. Years ago, I think I knit these in 2009, I knit these mittens, which are the hand-to-hand by Kate Gilbert. Kate Gilbert. And I love them. They were knit out of ultra alpaca in this pink and white, and these were sort of my go-to mittens for a lot of years. Like the gloves I showed you last week, they're kind of breaking out like a little hole in the thumb and stuff. And they also have kind of these weird like holes up here, which looks like a really like weird place to, for them. And what happened with these, and really with a lot of my mittens, is I will have them, and I'll have my car keys in my hand, and the little ring that connects the key to the little key fob will kind of catch, and so I think it like broke those threads and stuff. So anyway, I loved these mittens. I love ultra alpaca. It's nice and warm, and these held up really pretty nicely through pretty heavy wear. So I bought that yarn because I knew that these were getting kind of worn and beat up at the end of last winter. So I saw that green at camp last summer and thought, immediately was like, okay, I'm going to knit a pair of ultra alpaca mittens to sort of replace these. So my first thought was I received that really pretty butterfly pattern right before Christmas, and I thought, I could do the butterflies, but I looked at it and that calls for fingering weight yarn. This is like a worsted weight, so that was just not going to work. And then I looked through the Knitted Mitten book by Solveig Larsen, which I love, and I kept looking through there, and I couldn't sort of settle on one, and then I went back and I got these mittens out because I loved the size of these. They've worked out really, really well. And so I thought about it, and I looked in my queue, and I thought, why don't I loved these mittens so much, why don't I just knit, a complete like redo of these? And so that's what I have cast on. And I just have this little bit because I had all this deciding to do. So I finally managed to cast on. And this has got a little hem. And I just joined that together and done the first half of this little braid, which is a really like simple little braid. And so I'm just kind of following along. Luckily at the time, that was still when I was writing a blog, and I had written about these in there, so I could go back and look because I changed a few things in the pattern like I usually do, but I had also written down the needle sizes I'd used. So for the inside of the hem, I did a size 1 needle, the 2.25 millimeter, and then as I turned for the outside and for the rest of the cuff, I will be using a 1.5 US or 2.5 millimeter. And then for the hand part, I'll use a size 2 or a 2.75 millimeter. So off the needles, I finished my gloves that I was working on last week. So I will put these both on. I finished them, but I haven't worn them outside yet. So they're both finished. And if you could see this little, you've got a little dirty spot. I did a little bit on my finger there. I used some of this, it's conductive thread. And this, I got this a long time ago. This is from Laura Nelkin's website. It's nelkinsdesigns.com, and this is so that you can use your phone. I bought this, a couple cards of it as soon as I heard about it at one point. But you can use other stuff. There's some kind of yarns from Habu that have like metal in them that you can use and just kind of weave it in there. And so I didn't knit this all the way around. I just kind of duplicate stitched it, and that's enough to, for it to work. So anyway, that is kind of an upgrade from the first mittens that I did. But yeah, I am looking forward to wearing it, to wearing these. It is really cold out. It turned really cold. It started out at 8 today and it's going down. So we're supposed to get down to like -10 tonight. So these will come in handy. I got them done just in the nick of time. In spinning, I don't really have anything to show you in spinning. I kind of have everything set up, so hopefully next week there will be. I kind of found the fiber that I wanted to use for my big Saxony project, and then I took the Christmas tree down, and that's kind of where I put my traveler in the other room. And so hopefully I can get started on that project this week. So and I'm still trying to decide on a spindle project. So hopefully next week I will have much more spinning for you. But I do have a little bit of show and tell. The first thing I wanted to tell you about was I posted on the group and I posted in Instagram because it's just, was so delighted when I saw it. But Meg Swanson has started a blog. And you can find it through, I think, the Schoolhouse Press website. It's schoolhousepress.com, I think, /blog. Or else there's probably a link on their page or something. But anyway, I think it's going to be like weekly or maybe a couple weekly. But she wrote one post. The first post is about some of the new books, these great new books that she got in just recently, and then she did like a little 5-minute video of talking about her bohus sweaters, and she has a kind of a collection of original bohus sweaters, ones that Elizabeth got or people have given to her. And so she, shows them, and there's a new bohus book that she talks about. But anyway, it was just like wonderful. It made me, nostalgic for knitting camp. But then I also wanted to catch you up, since I'm talking about mittens and it's, cold winter. I wanted to catch you up on a couple projects that I knit last spring, early summer, when I was doing all the mittens. I did this one, this pair, like in the spring, and I can't remember what exactly the name of the pattern is. I will have to look it up and put it in at the bottom. But this was a kit from Tanis Fiber Arts. She sells just the pattern separately too, but I had gotten the whole kit. So this is her yarn, and it's like a DK weight yarn on the outside, the stranded part, and then it is lined with this really fun, like coral, kind of salmony coral MCN. So I knit these kind of in the spring, so I didn't know what it would be like to actually wear them. So I wore them this week, and just wanted to let you know they're like really soft. The yarn was wonderful to knit with. And this is actually the first pair of lined mittens that I've ever made. So I wore them around, kind of just running errands. So I was driving the car and running in stores and, that kind of thing. And I was not, they're very warm, but I was like surprised, and I don't know, I've never had lined mittens before, but like driving, it's not usually a problem for me to drive in mittens. I drive in mittens all the time, but I've never had lined ones. And so I don't know if it was that or if it's just kind of they're like quite thick because they've got, first it's a DK weight yarn stranded, and then they've got that lining in there. So without my hand, you can sort of see how thick they are. But they just felt like too kind of thick and bulky to be really comfortable like driving in, and my hands sort of, the lining would sort of, the outside mitten would sort of slide against like the lining in the inside. I didn't like them as much as I imagined I was going to. I have not like walked in them. I think if I, would take a walk in the winter, um, that they would keep my hands really warm because they are so thick. So I haven't done that in them, but I don't know, for kind of just running around like everyday kind of mittens, I don't know that these will be the first ones that I pull off. Compared to the other pair of mittens that I was going to show you that I knit last summer, and that is these, if you remember these. These are the mittens I knit from the Solveig Larsen book. And these were knit from a hand spun. It's Corriedale and Angora. It's got 10% Angora, but I don't know if you can see how fuzzy they are. I love these mittens so much. So these are, just one thickness, if you can see the difference there. But these were the mittens that I finished according to her technique, where you sort of plunge the finished mitten between hot water and cold water a couple of times, and then just let them flat to dry, and then brush them inside and out. So that brought off the loft on them a little bit. The yarn was like a fingering weight yarn, but it was knit to a little bit of a tighter gauge, certainly a tighter gauge or a looser gauge than I would knit these gloves. So I was worried if they were going to actually be warm enough, or if I was going to actually have to line these to, because I felt like, cold air would blow through them. That fulling, and also because this has got the Angora, you could actually see like on the inside, it's like, right here, kind of where I would be like kind of gripping the steering wheel. It's much fuzzier. They are so warm, and with the Angora, they are so soft. I love them so much. So yeah, and they're thinner, so they're easy to drive with and stuff. So yeah, so I'm really impressed with that like whole finishing process that she did. It would work because she lives in northern Sweden and it's cold there, right? Now I want to knit more. I really want to knit more mittens from that book, and using that, I have a little bit more hand spun that I can use that I spun at the same time. So that is all that I have for you this week. Thank you so much for joining me. The podcast is on iTunes, on YouTube. I embed it in the post on the Ravelry group, which is Friends of Heartland Knits. So there's a lot of different ways you can, catch up and watch it, pick your favorite. And until I see you next week, from my heart to yours, happy knitting.